MMA Roadshow, episode number 177. My name is John Morgan. Cold Coffee is not with me in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, but I've got a solid replacement here with the young Nick Baldwin, teenage sensation Nick Baldwin, who made the trip out here to Sioux Falls as well for Bellator 204, Caldwell versus Lahat. And we'll just say right now, we're not doing anything illegal. You're not partaking of the frosty beverage this evening.
No, I'm not. Maybe a surprise to you, but no, I have to drive home, and I haven't had my license long enough where I can be like .07 or whatever. I have to be dead zero, or else technically it's illegal driving home.
Oh,
so,
is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess because you're still a minor, so you can't have any.
No,
right?
I'm not. I'm 18.
Right, but in the States, you got to be 21,
in the States,
right?
Well, technically I can't drink at all here, so
yeah.
Sure. But also driving, even in Canada, have to be 0% alcohol level.
Learn something new there. Well, yes,
Yeah.
here you shouldn't have it at all, but in Canada, they do it the right way and let you drink at 18.
They do, but you still can't drive even a little bit. So
That's smart, though. You shouldn't drink and drive.
No,
it's
you
terrible.
shouldn't. No, you shouldn't.
It's
but
terrible.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you made the drive down here. How long was the drive? You live in Toronto right now?
I live in Winnipeg.
You live in Winnipeg.
I'm moving to Toronto actually in 11 days.
All right.
Drive was about 6.5, 7 hours, so nothing too bad. Could have been worse.
Very cool. Well, you made it down here. Of course, you do cover the sport for Bloody Elbow. Bellator 204, was it just because it was geographically close? Is that kind of what it was?
I think that really is what it is. I mean, I've wanted to cover a Bellator card actually for a little while because I've heard nothing but great things about just the process, the staff, the PR people that we talk to on a daily basis, the actual fights, everything. It sounds like covering Bellator is a blast, and this is my first time doing so, and with it being in driving distance, that makes a lot more sense, especially, it makes sense. I can't fly across the world to cover, Bellator 204, so it's pretty close and made it work.
Very good. Well, I am, by the way, enjoying a frosty beverage this evening because that's how we do. Second time in Sioux Falls for me. The last time, of course, was I had to look it up 2 years ago, July 2016 for UFC.
And Lineker.
That's right, UFC Fight Night 91. Couple things really stick out from that card. I mean, number one, of course, Lineker and McDonald, Ferguson and Tony Ferguson and Lando Venata. That was a fantastic fight. Kind of a breakout performance for Lando Venata, of course. But I will tell you a funny story about Tony Ferguson. So the media that week was basically me and Fernando Prates, our Brazilian reporter, who was coming in doing some training, and it was basically just us. In similar fashion to the way it's kind of been me and you at a lot of things this week, it was me and Fernando. And so they were doing open workouts, and the local media came to cover some of the local guys that were on the card.
Sure.
But once the local guys were done working out, like they left because they had to go cover like high school football and other things like that. And Tony Ferguson shows up, and it's literally just me and Fernando there. And I'm like, Tony, man, you don't have to work out, man. It's cool. Like it's just us. And he's like, nah, man, I'm working out. He took his phone, hooked it up to the DJ booth over there, and was playing like basically a whole bunch of music that's like his walk-in song, and basically doing like dance, jiu-jitsu for like a good half hour.
That's such a Tony Ferguson thing to do,
right?
100%.
He's like, I'm working out. I don't care if it's just the two of you. I'm putting in I'm getting my sweat in.
Yeah.
It was solid. And kind of on a not quite as fun note, that was the last time I saw Josh Saman too, man. He was he was there that week. I think he actually gave Fernando a copy of his book, and man,
crazy.
Yeah, I had no idea what was coming on. So yeah, interesting card. How you like Sioux Falls so far?
Sioux Falls, so far so good. Nothing super pretty, but nothing I guess out of the ordinarily bad. Just another town, but it's good. I like it.
It's got some decent restaurants. The downtown area. Weather can't beat the weather right now, man. The Vegas heat. Getting out of that for a bit. We've actually got the door open in the hotel room, which just goes to show you, by the way, how old this hotel is. Definitely older than you. There's no question about it. I mean, this is like an old motel that they've converted. You don't have hotels with patios and doors on them anymore.
No, you don't.
Not like this, anyway. All right, so we're here to cover Bellator 204. Let's talk about some of the storylines going in. Darien Caldwell in the main event, the bantamweight champion, moving up to the featherweight division. You and I both talked to him this week. I mean, it's at first glance, it's kind of weird, right? I mean, you're like, what is the point of this fight? I don't really understand it. But Darien says, I want to be a champ. I want two divisions. I want to go after the featherweight belt too. And I guess this is kind of my entry into the division. I don't know. What do you think about his potential at 145 pounds? And does the fight interest you when it's a champ and a non-title fight? Should they have, if they were going to do this, should they put him in? Just give me your thoughts on it overall.
It is an odd situation. I think the main reason it is, or we look at it as a strange situation, is because usually, especially in the UFC nowadays, when Conor McGregor sort of has defined this whole era of super fights, we have a champion at one weight class, he'll immediately get a title shot at a different one.
Right.
Other maybe older school fans might not even agree with that, and so this might just be going back to that. And Darien Caldwell, hasn't done much, if anything, at featherweight before, so why give him the best there is at in Bellator's featherweight division? So I guess it makes sense, but just going with the times, typically you'd have Darien Caldwell fight Patricio Pitbull, which actually would be a great fight. As far as this one matchup against Noad Lahat, I mean, I guess there's some intrigue because you see Caldwell not having to cut a bit of extra weight. He is a pretty big bantamweight.
Yeah.
And so I think he'll probably look better than ever. And Noad isn't a huge featherweight anyway, so there's not going to be many issues. I still think we'll see the best Caldwell, but it does still feel like a fight that it's just a paycheck for both guys.
It's interesting. I mean, Caldwell says, listen, if I win this, I should get a title shot, and he wants it. Meanwhile, you got James Gallagher, who's fighting on the main card, who says, bizarrely, he just moved down to bantamweight, and the bantamweight champ moves up to featherweight. So, of course, James says, you're ducking me, you're running from me. James says, I want your 135-pound title. Patricio actually said, I don't want you to come up to me. I'll come down to you. Yeah. Kind of a similar fashion to what we had with, TJ and Demetrius. It's like, the guy, everybody wants to get a second belt, right? So it's kind of a weird position. Like, if you're that guy in one division, you really don't want the guy coming to you looking for a second belt. You want to go to him.
Look at Stipe. He had nothing to gain against Daniel Cormier.
It's very, very true. Talk about James Gallagher, what you see him. This is the first week that I've ever been around him. I mean, I haven't been at his other fights. So this is the first time I've had a chance to talk to him in person. It's the first chance I've had to watch his workouts in person. I mean, future star potential all over it. He wants to be the superstar. He's following the Conor McGregor path, as you mentioned that name. And I think, I mean, he trains beside him, right? He's seen the rise of Conor McGregor, so I think you can't blame him for trying to follow the playbook a little bit. But what do you think? I mean, is he the real deal? Does he have that type of star quality to you?
Well, I mean, just sort of on your note of following Conor McGregor's footsteps, it makes a lot of sense when you train beside the guy almost every day whenever Conor's in the gym, which, might not be as much as it used to be, but that's another story for another day. But I mean, if just a random person saying, I want to be Conor McGregor, then you might have the fans start saying, give that up, be your own person. But when you're training, let it go, I guess. But as far as his potential, I think Gallagher has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
I like you, obviously haven't been beside him or talking to him. This was actually the first time I ever said a word to him. So he's obviously a very confident guy. He's a nice guy. And I mean, he's a good fighter. His ground game's very good. I mean, his striking's getting better. He seems to be well-rounded. Training at SPG, I mean, he appears to be getting better and better, and he's still young. And now that he has the potential, maybe fighting at featherweight, now, dropping down to bantamweight, where does his future lie? We don't know. Maybe, that's another option for the bantamweight, featherweight, two-division champion that might, reign over the Bellator divisions one day. So, I mean, this guy is young. He has a lot of potential. And but this fight does seem like a good step up for him, I will say.
I agree. Yeah, I feel like standing next to him this week, he does strike me as more of a natural bantamweight. Like, featherweight, I think, might be a little too big of a division for him. I think it was good for him to make that move down. But we'll see. Looking at the odds, Darien Caldwell is a minus 650 favorite, so a huge favorite over Noad Lahat. James Gallagher only a minus 165. So Ricky Bandejas getting a lot of respect from the odds makers, even if he's kind of an unknown, kind of an unknown quantity. So what do you think? I mean, these two guys fighting, does it set something up? Do you think these guys need to meet, whether it be at 145, 130? Because Gallagher is saying, listen, and he's calling a shot the way Conor used to. He's saying, I'm going to win this fight. I'm going to put on a show. And then we're going to Dublin, and we're gonna do it for the title in Dublin with Caldwell. And he had some pretty strong words the other day in the media workout, right? Yeah. He's like, he said Darian says that 50,000 Irish fans or whatever. He's like, you don't have 50,000 American fans. Like, what are you talking? He was calling him out a little bit.
No,
so,
he was.
What do you think? You got Caldwell saying he wants to go to 45, and you got Gallagher saying, I want the champ to come back to 35, and I want him to defend his belt, and I want to take it from him. If let's say they both win. They're both favorites. Do you think they should fight each other at 35, or do you think Caldwell has done enough to kind of get his move at 45?
It's tough to say. I mean, if Caldwell wins, I suspect. I mean, we know he's already said it. He wants the winner of Patricio Pitbull versus Emmanuel Sanchez, which you guys just announced earlier today. So I suspect should Caldwell win, that's the fight he'll push for. I don't know if Bellator is going to do that because that's still November. You got a little time. Maybe I don't see him taking a second non-title fight. That would seem quite crazy to me, anyways. I don't know if the Gallagher fight really lines up because he's doing his thing now at featherweight. Gallagher is dropping down. I mean, yeah, they've both, or now after tomorrow they will have both fought at both bantamweight and featherweight. But right now they're in different weight classes. So, I mean, I know super fight, is a big thing nowadays in MMA, but can they land it up? I'm not sure. And do they want to? I don't know. Because Caldwell, although not undefeated, he's still young. He's on the rise. Even though he's the champ, he is on the rise.
Yes.
Gallagher certainly is as well. And I will say one thing about Gallagher. I think he still needs that one big win on his resume before fighting for a title.
Yeah.
Chinso Machida, that was a name. I still feel like there should be one more. Because, I mean, Ricky Bandejas, although he has a good record, 10-1, he seems to be a pretty legit guy. He's an unknown, as you said. And so, on the record, that really doesn't mean a whole lot, even if Bandejas is a legitimate talent, and which I guess we'll find out tomorrow night. I think he needs that one marquee win before a title shot, but knowing who Gallagher is and the star potential he has, Bellator probably will disagree.
Yeah. I should say that we owe Mr. Gallagher an apology. I'm not sure if you saw his tweet earlier today, but he did point out that on our app we had him listed as being from Northern Ireland, and I did go correct that. I do apologize. I don't know how that got entered in the database that way. But sure enough, he was listed as being from Northern Ireland, which put the Northern Irish flag next to his picture on the bout lineup, and a fan tweeted him at it, and he retweeted and said that that was a good way for us to get boycotted. Hopefully that will not be the case. It was a data entry error, but I have since corrected that, so I do apologize. Okay, Logan Storley taking on AJ Matthews. Logan Storley, I've had my eye on Logan Storley for a while. I like him. I think he is a legit prospect. Fantastic wrestling base. His last two fights have gone to a decision. It has the potential to be a boring fight. I mean, he has the potential to be that kind of a heavy top position, wrestling heavy thing. He is, according to the odds makers, a minus 1,000 favorite.
Crazy.
That is insane. That is 10-1 over AJ Matthews. AJ Matthews, though, hard not to like AJ Matthews, right? I mean, the guy just has tons of personalities. He's here hanging out with Patrick Cummins, who's usually with him, and says, had some good things to say the other day. Said, listen, man, I've made some changes. I had some stuff going on in my life. I wasn't doing the right things. I know what the right things are now. I don't know. I like the guy, but it is a tough one going against Logan Storley. What do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, it's a tough one to call because I'm not as familiar with both guys. I've seen AJ Matthews fight. I admittedly don't even know if I've actually seen Storley fight, but from everything, I mean, he's a very decorated wrestler, out of college, and seems like a very legit guy. He's 7-0 undefeated. He's never lost, never tasted defeat. Whether that means much, who knows? But he seems like a smart fighter because he even said himself that if he can get you down, why wouldn't he take you down? Because that's what he's best at. Why, take a bigger risk? And so that's high fight IQ as far as I'm concerned. He compared himself a little bit to Ben Askren and Khabib even, and so it is a tough fight for AJ Matthews. He has to keep this one standing. I doubt he can, but if he can, maybe he'll mix up a little bit and give Storley some trouble.
It's a tough one, like you said. Storley, he was a 6-time state champion wrestler here in South Dakota, and I'll tell you what, we're here at the Host Hotel, the Holiday Inn, and I was hanging out earlier and met some kids that were in the lobby or whatever, and these kids came up to me and they were talking like they started wrestling when they were 3. Yeah. I mean, like this is a wrestling place, but it's funny because I'll admit that I didn't know this, that AJ Matthews is also from South Dakota. And, so we were kind of talking to him, hey, you're going to be the bad guy, Logan, this is Logan Storley country. And he was like, the hell? He's like, I'm from here too. Like, I felt, I was kind of embarrassed. I associated him with SoCal, and I thought that's where he was from, but he grew up here. So it was pretty cool. He's had his family here all week long hanging out, and, yeah, I mean, it's got the potential to be a special night for him, I guess.
No, his grandma's here too. I love seeing that. But yeah, it's funny. I think I know. I saw the day before the open workouts that he was from South Dakota, and I'm thinking the storyline at Storley, the hometown here. Well, you got AJ Matthews here as well, but yeah, I think Storley will have more fans because I mean, even Matthews said, I mean, he's sort of SoCal owns him right now, Manila owns him right now.
Right.
South Dakota hasn't done as much, I guess, for him, even though he grew up here for several years. So it is what it is, but probably Storley's biggest crowd.
The main card starts with a fight that got interesting today, I think.
Yeah.
Taiwan Speedy Claxton versus Crystalline Sione. Listen, coming into this fight now, our Mike Bond wrote a nice piece on Crystalline Sione earlier in the week about he just legally changed his name. It's kind of a human interest piece more than MMA, but the guy his last name was like his stepdad's. It wasn't the greatest stepdad or whatever, and so he ended up changing his name. And it was just kind of a human interest story. But Bellator, much like Strikeforce years ago, has a way of matching up prospects with guys that they think the prospects can beat. So in my head, I'm like, well, this must be a showcase for Speedy Claxton. I mean, here's the guy that came in with the flying knee as his debut, and he's one of their stud prospects. And then today at weigh-ins, they get up there for the ceremonial weigh-ins, and they're just I shouldn't even say they're barking at each other. Crystalline Sione just starts yelling at him like, you didn't want this fight, you don't need, like, just going off.
Yeah.
I had no idea there was any beef between them.
No, nor did I. And as you said, I mean, it got interesting today because before, I mean, I was sort of on the same page as you. I didn't know, I mean, I don't know tons about Claxton even, but knew even less about his opponent. And I knew about the flying knee and his 2 wins in Bellator, and looks like a legit prospect, but now I'm intrigued. I mean, I still don't know if in the actual cage his opponent can do much, or we'll see, but I'm intrigued because they clearly don't like each other all that much from the sounds of it.
I don't know what the history is, but they definitely don't. And hey, man, I don't like manufactured beef, man. I don't feel like every fight has to be a grudge match. But it does make it kind of interesting when you know that people don't like each other. It just adds a little flavor to it, right?
Especially with a fight that otherwise I wouldn't care tons about, if I'm being completely honest.
I get it.
I mean, I am intrigued by Claxton, if I'm being honest, but it's not a fight where I'm gonna, cancel all these plans to watch.
Yeah.
And so now maybe I would cancel those plans.
There you go. It's so I like the main card. I mean, I think the 4 fights here all have a little bit of story. Again, the opener just got the storyline for me today, but the other ones I really care about. Storley, again, being a guy that I do think has a chance to be one of those special guys, but he's can he come out of his shell? And then, of course, everything that we talked about with Caldwell and Benavidez. By the way, if you're looking for something on the prelims that might have a little bit of emotional tie there as well, Corey Davis, did you catch him when he came in today fighting David Michaud?
And
Corey,
shirt, right?
Well, he came in and I don't know what he was yelling. He was like, "You brought me in to lose. You made a fucking mistake." And I was just like, "What?" Well, and he was funny because he was looking at all of us, and I'm like, "Sir, I didn't do anything. I'm just here taking photographs and video, But he's got a little chip on his shoulder. I think he feels like he was the guy that was brought to lose to the local guy, and he's like, "Hey, that's not going to happen."
Yeah, he's the one fighting Jason Jackson, correct? Yeah.
No,
David Michaud?
No, that's Jordan Larson's fighting Jason Jackson. Did Jordan have a T-shirt on? Because you said something about a T-shirt.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm thinking of. But yeah, Corey Davis. Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. But again, a prelim that otherwise it's a fight I'll watch, but maybe not cancel plans for. And now I'll cancel those plans. I mean, I'm interested to see what he has to say. If he does pull off that win, talking to him afterwards. There's something going on, and we don't know what it is, and I'm intrigued.
He's angry. I know. I'll tell you that. The other one that was pretty wild this morning, Romero Cotton versus Willie Whitehead. Romero Cotton, another one of these kind of stud wrestlers, a prospect. Weird, he got added to the card this week, and they never even really made an announcement about it. Like, it just came in it basically came in the PR schedule email, and I'm like, oh, wow, look, Romero Cotton's fighting this week. They never made a big deal about it, but Willie Whitehead came in this morning at 200 pounds for a middleweight fight, and it's pretty interesting. South Dakota has these rules where you're basically, and I admittedly did not know this until today. Again, only my second time here, and was able to speak to the commission today. But they have a rule in South Dakota where you can get up to 10% of the original contracted weight, so a sliding scale basically per division, and they'll still sanction the bout. So I mean, if you're a light heavyweight, you can be 20.5 pounds over. If you're a heavyweight, you can be 26.5 pounds over. I mean, it's pretty wild. And I don't know that I'm against it. I mean, Romero Cotton looks like the more talented fighter. So the fact that Willie Whitehead is heavier, it might not be that big of a deal to make it, But it was wild. And the other thing, too, that I thought was wild was that South Dakota does not have a rule where they impose any fines. So the fine had to be negotiated between the two athletes and the organization. And of course, the organization opted for the standard 20%, all of which goes to Romero Cotton. But pretty wild scene this morning. I don't know. I don't understand how you can show up that heavy for a fight.
Yeah, so you mentioned the rule with the South Dakota Commission that you hadn't known about, and obviously not something I wasn't aware of either. I'm curious, honest question. I mean, we've seen even in high-profile fights, fighters miss weight badly. One one idea that comes to mind: Kelvin Gastelum blowing weight against Tyron Woodley, 10 pounds or so for a welterweight fight. So, do most commissions do they have a limit where if you show up just 15 pounds over,
The stronger commissions do, yeah. A lot of the stronger commissions, when you think of your Californias, your Vegas, it gets out of a certain range. Like, dude, we can't even, we can't sign off.
Well, I
on
knew,
this.
you can't weigh in 30 pounds over.
Right.
I just wasn't sure if there was that one cutoff
line.
Well,
and here's one thing. I was talking to John McCarthy about this today, and I'll be honest, Big John was like, hey, that's on you guys as media to bring more attention to it. But it does. When things like this happen, it is so annoying that we're sitting here. I mean, we cover this sport full time, right? I mean, well, you're a student as well, but I do nothing but cover the sport. Right. You do some other stuff as well. But the fact that commissions have different rules to begin with, I mean, damn it. Like, why can't we get everybody on the same page?
No,
it's so maddening, and I just don't see how anybody in any commission can say that it's for the betterment of anybody involved to change things.
It has to screw up the fighters. Does it not? I mean, if you're fighting in Vegas and you're fighting in New York, you have different rules, or that can't be. I mean,
can't be good for the fighters, and it can't be good for the officials. Now, I mean, this is more of an administrative thing. We're talking about weigh-ins, but I mean, yeah, the rules are all different. You got referees that have to make split-second decisions, and they've got to factor in where they are as they make that decision. I mean, that should be instinctual, you know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't have to process and analyze and consider, okay, I believe that's an infraction, but let me remind myself real quick where I am so that I can decide whether
or even worse, just having to remember which states have this.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got to get everybody on the same page, man. And I don't know the best way to go about it. I've heard that national oversight isn't necessarily good. I mean, heck, talking to Big John this morning, he's like, why does the government have to be involved at all? It's like the government doesn't regulate baseball or football or whatever. Why do they have to regulate combat sports? And I mean, that's a whole other argument to have, I guess. I mean, there's a much higher degree of safety concerns, I guess, in fight sport. But yeah, man, got to get everybody on the same page. It's just, to me, it's unacceptable. And it seems like we're growing further apart every year, with different commissions doing different things versus, just getting more together. Like,
and
I get it.
That's because some commissions aren't budging. I mean, you look back 2 years ago, the rules are the same, even though we had this, rule changes, almost 2 years ago now, I think it was. And then you have other commissions like California even doing more and more with their 10-point plan from a little while back. And, they're constantly working on improving, whether it's weight cutting or just getting the rules in check. And you have guys like John McCarthy and the commentator, his name is escaping me, Sean Wheelock. I mean, they're constantly trying to improve the rules and all that, and yet some commissions aren't budging. And so, as you said, it's
frustrating. I believe it was Idaho. I was talking to somebody about this. I believe it was Idaho that they essentially, because one of the issues that the commissioners will raise up is like, listen, we are regulated by law, and because we're regulated by law, like anytime we want to change something, we have to go through the government. We have to get it we have to get it voted on. We have to do all that, and I get that. Bureaucracy is a pain in the ass. But I believe it was Idaho, and I hope I'm right about that. That I was told that their commission basically wrote it into law that we are going to use the rules that Las Vegas uses, the rules that Nevada uses. Like that's the leading combat sports commission. So when they make a change, we make that change too. So there you go. Now you don't have to update the policy every time. You just go, our policy is we use their policies. Done. Now you don't have to go vote on it every time. That seems like a brilliantly simple way to do it.
Even if I was that commission, I'd probably follow California, not Nevada, if I'm being totally honest. But yeah, I mean, following a high-profile commission that's been around for a long time, very notable, I think that's way better than Idaho. They use their commission once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
Why have commission members voting on things that
I agree. I'll tell you the other thing. Since we're talking about Big John, the other thing, we actually ended up flying in on the same flight together from Vegas, and we were just kind of bullshitting as you do, killing time in the airport, and we were talking about weight cutting, and he is sold on the idea of hydration test the day before. He's like, that's the way to end weight cutting. hydration test the day before. You still do the previous day weigh-ins, but they've got to test within a certain scale. If they don't test within a certain scale of hydration, then they don't even get to weigh in. And I talked to him about it.
Test on the Thursday or the Friday?
On the Friday. So, well, I guess for Bellator it'd be Thursday, but the day before the fight. Yeah, you basically test their hydration level, which my understanding is it's urine, and then you dip like a little sample thing, and you look through I don't know what it's called. I'm not that smart about it, but I don't know. I want to research it further because Big John has been around the sport for a long time, man, and I do believe that
he knows what he's talking about.
He knows what he's talking about. He's educated. He's lived it. He's watched it. So when he says something, when he's got a strong opinion like that, I feel like it's got some weight.
You go with it,
I should research it. And he says the way we fix weight cutting is we do previous day weigh-ins. You check the hydration level first, and if they're within the allowable hydration level, then you put them on the scale. If not, if they've dehydrated themselves to get to that point, they don't even get to weigh in. Fights off. It's not medically safe. Now, obviously, that's scary to start scratching fights on weigh-in. So, kind of, I was talking to some other guys behind the scenes today, and what they said is, yeah, well, what you do is you slow roll it. You know what I mean? Like put it in place for maybe 6 months, maybe even a year. Maybe you go extra, you put it in place for a year, but you don't pull the fights, but you educate people. The fighter comes in to fight, you give him that hydration test, and you say, hey, by the way, if this is next year at this time, you don't get to fight because you're dehydrated, and let me show you what your level is. I don't know, man. It sounds like it does make sense. I mean, if what we're concerned about is fighter safety and this dehydration stuff, and I know they're doing a lot of this in one, they're doing different stuff in one because you don't even have to weigh in at certain weights. It's a little bit different, I think, than most people are aware, but they are doing a part of it is based on hydration tests. But I don't know, man. I think maybe there's something to it.
No, I agree. I mean, I'm a guy who's always been against weight cutting. I mean, when guys are cutting 30 pounds and putting it on the next day before a fight, it's not healthy. And anyone that says it is, they're not right. And so I've said for a little while, maybe do weigh-ins on Thursday, and then that gives them an adequate time to weigh in, and then
So like 48 hours out?
Essentially, and then you don't have some people have complained about the morning weigh-ins. They're not morning people or whatever the issue is. They have to cut weight throughout the night and sleep while they're dehydrated, so that's maybe an issue. Where 48 hours out, they cut that day and they're good to go, and then they have 2 days essentially to rehydrate. Now the issue is that could also just lead to even bigger weight cuts because they see, we got 2 days to rehydrate, let's cut 50 pounds now, and so. Right. It's hard to fix it entirely. But.
That's the thing is that, to me, it's never been that one decision you make that fixes it, and that's why it's hard because it's complicated, and people are always going to try to game the system. And then the people that say same-day weigh-ins is the way to go, but even the fighters admit the people will still cut weight. They just won't be rehydrating successfully. So we'll see, but it's something I definitely want to research more. All right, listen. There was some other stuff going on tonight. I had a chance to catch up. Michael Chandler is in town, and look, he's in the middle of some contract stuff, and I had a chance to go run and catch up with him. He was at there was a charity event here at the hotel, actually. Seeds for Change is the name of the charity. And this is actually the organization that helped take CB Dalloway over to Africa. He recently went over there, said it really changed his life. He actually got up and spoke for a little bit tonight about it, kind of just going over there and the impact it had on his life. So they were doing a charity event, and they were nice enough to let me poke my head in the door and get a couple of interviews. And one of those was with Michael Chandler. I wanted to get an update, find out if while he was here, he got his contract stuff done. Scott Coker, should say, is not here in town, so I imagine Scott would need to be involved in those discussions a little bit, but did feel we should get a quick update from Michael Chandler, and here's what he had to say.
Let's do it, Mike. I mean, we know you've been open. You're having contract talks and all that. Break the news, man. You got something done? We know the next step.
No news, man. I got no news. We're still looking at what the future might hold. So we're getting everything figured out, man. I'm extremely excited to be here in Sioux Falls, here at the Seeds of Change charity event. Doing a ton of stuff with one of my best sponsors and some of my best friends and some of the best people in mixed martial arts, American Ethanol. So just having a blast. It's fight week here, so got a lot of teammates fighting here at Bellator tomorrow night. Just having a great week. It's exciting.
Nice. What's the process like for you during all this? I mean, is it fun? Is it uncomfortable? I mean, business is sometimes tense. I mean, what's it like for you? Right?
Business is business. Number one, I know my worth. Number two, I know exactly what I'm fighting for. Number three, I know exactly how good I am. I truly think I'm the best lightweight in the world, and I don't think there's anybody that can convince me otherwise. So with that comes a lot of layered decision making, So I have phenomenal management, phenomenal people around me, a phenomenal relationship with Bellator. To be completely honest, even though there's been ups and there's been downs, and we've talked about some things, and we weren't quite sure if we're going to get a deal done or if we're not going to get a deal done, or we are or not. Scott Coker, Rich Chu, these guys at Bellator are the real deal. They're great people, and we're getting things figured out, and we're excited about what the future holds either way. So I'm excited.
What's it like for you? Because obviously this organization, you've been a part of it for a long time. You've been the face of it. I feel like it's comfortable, right? But then there's also other big name organizations out there that are attractive too. So is there anything about the relationship or the organization itself that's like kind of, I want to stay or I want to leave?
Yeah, the older I get, and now being a husband and being a father, I love the relationships with Bellator or the possible relationship with other promotions, but at the end of the day, nothing is more important to me than my wife and my son and my legacy, And I've always said that, like, whoever was going to take better care of me, who was ever going to be there and take care of me better, was going to be who I was going to end up getting a deal done with. So at this point, there are no deals done, and we will see what happens. But it all goes back to knowing your worth, realizing that I have been in this organization longer than anybody. I do have the most wins in Bellator history. I have been easily, hands down, in the most exciting fights in Bellator history. You could easily say that Bellator would not be where they are without the fights that I've had, without being one of the faces of the promotions, one of the guys who literally goes out there and never disappoints, one of the guys who from minute to minute to second, people are on the edge of their seats and they want to watch my fights just because I go out there and I lay it on the line. I've never had one boring fight. I've never gone out there, win or lose, and ever taken a step backwards and ever thought about taking it easy on someone or thought about taking a round off. And that's just what I've always done. So with that, and with the damage that I've taken, and with the value that I bring to each and every second stepping into a cage, whether it's Bellator or another organization, I have to take that into account. And luckily, I have great people around me, and it's just fun, man. Bellator has been nothing but great ever since 2011 when I signed with it, or 2010 when I signed with them, 2011 when I won the first world title, and now numerous world titles with them. So it's just fun, man. I can honestly say at 32 years old, I feel like I'm the best I've ever been. I'm finally in my prime. I'm finally scratching the surface of my capabilities, and it's a good place to be. It's a good place to be in contract negotiations right now at this point, and I haven't lost in 4 years besides that freak injury at Madison Square Garden. Other than that, I'm coming up on 4 years undefeated. So when you have that kind of track record and you have most of your wins by finish, and you always go out there and put on a good show, you have to know your worth, and that's what we're doing.
Is it just money? Not to be too personal, it is your job. You guys fight for a living. Yeah. Is it just money, or is it like things outside of that like? Well,
I have some good stuff I have coming down the pipe if I choose to get a deal done with Bellator. If we get a deal done, I have some other relationships that I've cultivated through other Viacom properties and that. And it's one of those things where I'm just. It definitely boils down to money. At the end of the day, I love the fans, and I take their opinions to heart. And I know I can't go a day without hearing everybody talk about how I can beat Khabib, and I can beat Conor, and I can beat all these guys, and I can beat the number one guy in the world in any organization. So of course you think about that, but at the end of the day, those people are going to forget about me the day I retire. I got a solid 6 months after I retire, and they're all going to forget about me, and it's on to the next big thing. And that's what you have to realize in this sport. It's so fleeting, and it's a what have you done for me lately business. And at the end of the day, I'm a businessman, I'm a father, and I'm a husband. And it just so happens that I'm really good at going out there and beating people up in a cage. So I have to weigh both scenarios and make the best decision possible. And yeah, I do expect it to make boatloads of money.
Fair enough. You're not an old guy, but is this your last contract? Are you thinking about the end yet?
I think I am starting to think about the end, only because it's helping me grow as a person. I think when I was first getting into the sport, I was 22 years old, and I could run through this brick wall and show up the next day day of practice, run through the brick wall again, and go and go and go. And I can still do that. If you ask these guys down at Henry Hoof's gym down in Florida, there's not a guy who goes harder than me. There's not a guy who can push harder than me. There's not a guy who recovers, a guy who takes care of himself, a guy who sleeps better, a guy who's there mentally. Like, I do everything that a professional athlete should do. This is not a game to me. This is not just a hobby. This is something I've taken extremely seriously. So now at 32, realizing that I'm still in my prime, and I think my prime is going to extend further than most guys' prime, because I didn't take a punch till I was 22 years old, you know? I didn't take really bad punches till I was 23, 24 years old, you know? So I'm, you know, not that long into the sport. I feel like I'm still very young in the sport. I still have a lot of growing to do, and now it's just about fighting smart and sharp, and still going out there delivering for the fans just like I do. And I separated a guy's shoulder and finished him in the first round. The fight before that, my last 2 fights have been dominant victories, you know, and I just always go out there and put on a great show, because I only know one speed. And so with that comes making sure I realize that I am my own worst enemy when it comes to possible physical damage that I'm taking. So always just taking care of myself and continuing to think about the end. And I think I have more than one contract that I could easily sign. I think you're going to see me in this game a little bit longer than most guys.
There's talks of Eddie Alvarez being a free agent. Are you hoping you guys end up under the same banner one way or the other? You guys have a nice history together.
I'll tell you what, man. There's not a guy that I respect in this sport more than Eddie Alvarez. When you share 50 minutes inside a cage, when I got a scar on my lip that he gave me, and I got another scar on my eyebrow that he gave me, and I can look at myself in the mirror and think, okay, that's from that guy. But man, Eddie put it on me here, he put it on me there, and you know, being 1-1, me finishing the first fight, him beating me in the second fight, and Eddie's just a warrior, man, and he's been Bellator champion, he's been UFC champion, he's been a champion in every major organization in the entire country, in the entire world. So I have a ton of respect for him as a fighter, and honestly, I want to see the best for him. You know, if that means staying with the UFC, I hope he stays with the UFC. If that means coming to Bellator, I would love to welcome him to Bellator and finish that trilogy. There's not a day that has gone by recently since he announced that this last fight was his last fight on his contract that people haven't been started talking about the trilogy and little videos getting put out there and people talking about the what ifs and that and whatnot. So I got a ton of respect for the guy. He fights for the right reasons. He fights like a dog, and I'd love to share the cage with him again.
Very nice. Well, I know you got a lot of things to do, so let you get back to it. How soon do you think we know? I mean, if you had to guess, how soon do we know what's next?
We should know in about the next 30 minutes, so you just barely missed it. No, I'm joking. Well, I don't know. In the next soon. I'd say we'll be within a week or two.
Cool.
So.
Hey guys and gals, no matter what you do in the bathroom to get ready, Dollar Shave Club has everything you need to look, feel, and smell your best. They have amazing shower stuff, hairstyling products, toothbrushes and toothpaste, and of course, razors and shave supplies. I know you might look at me and you say, Cold Coffee, you're kind of burly, man. You got that beard. You know, how can you use this stuff? But you know what I do use and I do love? The Amber Lavender Body Cleanser. I love it. I love how it smells. Every time I use it, I feel soft and smooth, and my girl loves it. And hey guys, that's all that matters, you know what I'm saying? But hey, that's how I get ready. But you're not me. You have your own way to get ready. You might shave your whole body to get ready for a bike race. Dollar Shave Club's executive razor and shave butter can help you. You might do your hair to get ready for your soccer match. Boogies by Dollar Shave Club can help you get your style right, folks. The thing is, no matter what you do to get ready, Dollar Shave Club has everything you need. And right now, you can get ready with an amazing deal on any one of their starter sets. I recommend the Daily Essentials Starter Set because I love the Amber Lavender Body Cleanser, but you can't go wrong with any of them. Head over to dollarshaveclub.com/road to pick your own Dollar Shave Club starter set for just $5. After your starter set, products ship at regular price. And make sure you check out their new video too. The dollarshaveclub.com/road. That's dollarshaveclub.com/road.
All right, that was Michael Chandler. So I guess the update there, Nick, is No update yet, but the update is coming soon. It sounds like he's, making some financial demands. Definitely wants to make sure he gets paid. He recognizes his own worth. Got to respect him for that. Ultimately, I don't know. What do you think? Better fit for him to stay at Bellator, or would you like to see him go to the UFC and test himself a little bit?
Me, selfishly, who wants to see the best fights, the best fight the best, Michael Chandler in the UFC would be great. I mean, seeing him fight, you can go the champ, you can go Khabib, even though that's, maybe too much too soon. You got Conor McGregor, you got Dustin Poirier, even do Eddie Alvarez again, Tony Ferguson. There's a lot of options for Michael Chandler, and so a lot of those would be fun. It's super fresh right now. I mean, do I have tons of intrigue in, Michael Chandler versus, I don't even know, but even the rematch with Brent Primus, I mean, isn't as intriguing on paper, if I'm being honest, as an actual fight. So, I mean,
as a fan, you want to see him.
As a fan,
you kind of want to see him there with the
in
new
the
matchups.
UFC, new matchups, maybe the better fights, more
He's
competitive
a great
fights.
fighter, man. He really is, and he seems to just be getting better. I mean, he is
getting better.
He's
yeah,
fun to watch, but what he said is true. He said, listen, this is about me taking care of my family, and legacy means something and all that, but as soon as I retire, that nobody even cares anymore, and we just move on to the next thing. So there's truth to that, but I get what you're saying. I mean, there's a lot of fights that would be fun to see, right? Fresh faces, fresh matchups, but I mean, I don't know. It's weird. Like I think Bellator would kind of hate to see him go. I mean, he's like one of the faces of their company, right?
I was gonna say he's maybe not the face, but he's definitely like top 3, top 5 for sure.
Yeah.
One of their more popular champions, I would say, and so I don't think Bellator lets him go. I think
unless he's just asking for ridiculous money. I think you're right. They got to keep him, right? It's just for a
they
reputation
will keep
thing.
him because even still, will the UFC pay him tons and tons and tons of money? I mean, what do they gain from signing Michael Chandler? I mean, it's just another legit guy in their light division who can definitely make some waves, but is he going to be a huge difference maker? I don't necessarily think so.
Right.
So is he worth, just an excessive amount, essentially? I mean, I think where he's at now, I mean, I'm sure Scott Coker wants to keep him around. Bellator wants to keep him around. They'll pay him good money. They are paying him good money. Even if they have to go a little higher, I'm sure they will. Just comes down to, does he get a little greedy, which I wouldn't blame him for. I wouldn't blame him for that whatsoever, by the way. But, we'll see what happens. But I suspect he'll stay with Bellator. I mean, sort of where he's at now. And
I feel that way, too. I think it's a good fit for him. I think it's a good fit for them. I think they find a way to make it work. Would you want to see Eddie Alvarez come back over here and do that trilogy fight?
Oh, on the flips, I mean, again, it's like the UFC. There's still the matchups. I mean, not as many, even if we see a Tony Ferguson fight down the road or Khabib. I mean, the matchups are still there.
Right.
If he does come over, I mean, I think that'll be a lot of fun. I mean, you do have fresh matchups in Bellator. I mean, you got guys like the champ Brent Primus. You got, run Chandler back again. That's hasn't happened for a while, so would make some sense. I mean, there's a lot of options for Eddie Alvarez. It'll be interesting to see where he goes as well.
Yeah, I agree. All right, listen. Earlier this week, just want to say real quick, I had a chance to go to the taping of Dana White's Contender Series Brazil. Unfortunately, I had to sign non-disclosure agreements to be there because they are taping them and airing them later this month. But they taped 3 episodes. They did it in 2 days, so there's going to be 3 new episodes. The good thing that I can say is that they had an English commentary crew there. So all those fights are going to be on Fight Pass. I don't know. I think there's like a 1-day delay maybe, so they air it in global, and I want to say they get it like exclusively for like 24 hours. So I guess you might have to avoid spoilers if you want to watch it without knowing the results. But there were some great fights, man. I definitely, the level that we saw in the Contender Series was definitely brought in here. There were some fun fights. There were a couple that were like, but you expect that, right? Not every fight's gonna be amazing, but I think people are definitely gonna watch them on Fight Pass. It was good. And we did have a scrum with Dana afterwards, too, that we'll have to wait until all 3 episodes air. We didn't talk about anything like newsworthy outside of Contender because, again, we couldn't air any of it, so it didn't make sense to talk like, what about this fight and what about that fight that then gets made in the 3 weeks. But anyway, I just want to give people a heads up that we'll have that coming to MMA Junkie and that you can see that stuff on Fight Pass because, the Ultimate Fighter Brazil, when they were airing that, it was all in Portuguese. So it was like...
with subtitles.
Right. If you want, no offense, but
it's 2018.
Come on, man. Who wants to read with subtitles? So I was glad to see that they not only did they have a Portuguese crew, but they had an English crew as well. So that's cool. So
Yeah.
we'll get to see the whole thing, and it'll be just like an episode.
Only thing I'll say about that is that it still is tape delay. And in 2018, as I said just a second ago, I mean, certain things that, I mean, I get it because it is Brazil, and it's not like people are, demanding
Yeah.
it right now, but something about watching sports live is just knowing that they've happened a week or 2 weeks ago, and there's some people in this world that know what happened.
Right.
Takes away a little bit of the excitement, even though you have no idea what's happened.
Right.
So, in your back of your mind, you're thinking about that. So
I'm with you on that. I can totally understand. Other things, I guess, this week, UFC 229, the big one that everybody's looking for, Conor versus Khabib. It does sound like there's not going to be a whole lot of pre-fight stuff for that. We know there's no world tour, but it doesn't sound like there's going to be a whole lot of promotional things for it. I mean, there's not even going to be media days across the United States or whatever. They're not doing that. And I did hear, though, that the press area is going to be shrunk down a little bit because they're trying to pack a few more seats in there to sell, because that's going to be a big gate. But I don't know. I heard some people say they're worried that there's not enough time to promote this fight, and
I don't know if you need time.
You know what? I'm kind of with you, Nick. I get it. Like, world tours are fun. Although I will say, the world tour from Maymac, by the end of that, I was like, oh my God, stop talking, people. I don't want to see any more of this. But, McGregor and Aldo was fun, and there was a lot of tension and all that. And it would be fun, I guess, to go have a media day in Moscow, to go have a media day in Dublin. I mean, that would be pretty incredible. But there's no time. The schedules don't allow it. I mean, these guys are deep in camp already. So I get it. And I will say, I'm kind of glad there's not a lot of time. I feel like a lot of time is just a lot of time for something to go wrong. You know what I mean?
It's true. It is very, very true. I was actually going to say the other thing, or the other opposite, essentially. I'd like there to be a little more time.
Yeah.
I mean, this fight is, 7 weeks away? I mean,
Yeah.
we're looking at early October. It's already mid-August. We're, less than 2 months away. That doesn't give me a lot of time to emotionally prepare myself. As insane as that sounds, as ridiculous as that is, I enjoy when, DC Stipe got announced 5 or 6 months in advance.
Yeah.
And that it felt in January, when it was announced right after their 2 fights at 220 in Boston, you felt, all right, well, we got a lot of time to wait. But it let it build up more and more, and thankfully no one got hurt, and that nothing went wrong. But it certainly had enough time for that to happen. But
It's true. I mean, when it's out there and you're kind of thinking about it and you're building up to it.
When a big fight is so long away, I remember when Anderson Silva, Nick Diaz was announced almost half a year in advance, and you're thinking, well, I want to see it now, but I kind of don't. Like, I want to get more and more excited for it. And so Khabib Connor's less than 2 months away. I kind of wish it was a little later, but then, as you said, I'd rather see the fight than not see the fight.
Let's
so
get the fight.
Let's get it over with.
I'll tell you what, man, it's been fun this week talking to fighters, because now that everything's official, now that everything's being done, talking to fighters about it, because I will say, man, I lean Khabib in that fight. I do lean. Right now, I'm leaning Khabib. The wrestling, the pace. I don't put a lot of stock into, a lot of people point to what was it, rounds 3 and 4 against Ali Quinta, where he kind of got touched up a little bit on the feet. But I feel like he, at that point, wasn't worried at all. It was, I don't want to say playing around, because that sounds disrespectful to Ali Quinta, but I do feel like Khabib was just like, let's put on a little show, let's get a little ring time.
That's what I said after the fight as well.
See, so all right, so I don't put a lot. That doesn't mean that Conor can't touch him up, because he can.
Sure.
He's devastating.
Look at Michael Johnson. I mean, he tagged him.
He did. So I don't know. I feel like I'm leaning Khabib, but it's been fun talking to fighters this week, because now it's official. Now it's happening. Man, I think everybody really does see this as like a 50-50 fight. I've been kind of talking to people off record. What do you think? What do you think? How are you breaking it down? And I think really the professional fighters that I've talked to this week, give Conor a lot of respect, you know what I mean? Which it would be easy to hate on the guy, right? I mean, he is the brash, bold guy, but everybody respects the hell out of him. And I feel like everybody feels like it's a 50-50 fight.
It really is. I have a buddy of mine who came down with me to Sioux Falls just to see the fights as a fan, and he's not a big MMA guy, essentially never watches it, but hey, get the opportunity to go to Sioux Falls and, go to some Bellator fights, why not? He's, as maybe a lot of non-MMA fans are, he's a big Conor McGregor guy,
right?
And so he didn't know who Khabib was until this fight was announced, and he's been saying, oh yeah, Conor's going to destroy him, the typical Conor McGregor fans, but I'm trying to tell him, this Khabib guy is really good.
Yep.
This is a 50-50 fight, and I didn't even say, yeah, Khabib's gonna win. You're crazy. This is a close fight. Conor on the feet, is obviously a lot better. He's great. Conor McGregor is a good fighter, and I think I mean, he's a very good fighter, and I think some people, I can't say forget about it, but there's just a lot of people that don't like the guy.
And I think
they discredit.
Think of him as the promotional guy. You got to separate that. You know what I mean?
You take that all away. He's a talented guy.
That's it. He's still
very
got incredible
good.
skills. I think
you can't win 2 titles in the UFC by talking.
I think you're so right, man. I think his skill on the microphone, all of a sudden people forget about his skill as a fighter because he's so great at that, and people are like, he's just all talk. It's like, no, he's not all talk. He talks and he talks and he talks, but he backs it up.
He
right?
does. The Nate Diaz loss doesn't help, but he avenged it. Beat Eddie Alvarez after. I mean, even fighting Floyd Mayweather didn't help. Taking 2 years off didn't help. And I think that actually is key. Some people might forget. I mean, they legitimately might forget how good Conor McGregor is. And we've seen Khabib be a lot more active than usual. So it's kind of all relative. But yeah, it is 50-50.
Yeah, I think recency bias, they call it, right?
Sure.
When you're what's the thing that you remember the thing that you see last is the one you remember the most. And you're right about that. I mean, I do think 2 years away, man, but all respect to Conor McGregor, dude. I mean, I've said it before, but I'll say it again, man. To come back from a layoff and to take that fight is awesome because I
could have fought Nate Diaz.
I think the Nate Diaz fight, well, no disrespect, I think the Nate Diaz stylistically is better for him. You know what I mean? And I think that would be a huge money fight. I think Khabib is the toughest stylistic matchup for Conor McGregor. And for him to come back from the layoff and take that fight, man, even if you're not a Conor fan, you got to respect that.
No, you do. Absolutely. Khabib's an animal. No one has been able to beat him, and that, there's a good chance that doesn't change come a couple months from now. But yeah, 50-50. And as you said, I mean, Conor McGregor, he has some guts to take this fight. He could have fought Nate Diaz. He could have fought, even Dustin Poirier. But he fought the Eagle.
I love it, man. I'm excited for it. All right, listen, at that charity event that I mentioned earlier, the Seeds for Change, I also had a chance to catch up with Luke Rockhold, and he shared some insight. He broke a little news with us. There's a reason that the UFC hasn't announced that Rockhold versus Weidman fight that everybody's expecting, and he explains that and a little bit more. Here is Luke Rockhold.
Well, Luke, I thought you were going up to 205, man. What happened on the move to light heavyweight?
Nothing's official. Nothing's official, man. I like it. I like the light heavyweight division. I think it's for the taking, and it just DC is, the complications with him, and he's tossing and turning. I just want the thing to really solidify itself and iron it out. I want a matchup. I want a sexy matchup. I want to get up there and I want to do some damage, and I want to make it mean something. I don't want to fight the best guy in the division and Alexander Gustafsson and have to backtrack, if DC doesn't fight and have to fight someone else lower for a potential title shot. What's the fucking point?
Right.
I want it to mean something, and for me, everything is open right now. I don't need to rush anything. Business is good everywhere, and they got to give me something sexy and entice me with something good. So nothing's official.
So in some ways, like the decision not to go to light heavyweight now, or maybe is kind of like the respect thing, almost like what DC did with Kane back in the day, where he's like, I'm not going to fight in the same division. Is that kind of what you feel like? As long as he's there, you don't want to be in that division?
Yeah, there's a certain amount of respect, and then of course DC's my brother. We came from the fucking very beginning together, and so I'm not going to step on his toes. I'm going to let him close out the way he wants to. I got plenty of time. I'm training. I'm healthy. I'm getting healthy. I'm nearly there. So we'll see. We'll see what's up. Madison Square Garden is very appealing. I like that stage. I've always wanted to fight there, and so got to get the right matchup, and we'll see what comes to be. So
we have seen, because fans notice it. Everybody heard the Weidman fight, but nobody ever made an official announcement. So no pen to paper yet. That's not necessarily the fight?
No pen to paper.
Does that one not intrigue you? I mean,
of course it's intriguing. Madison Square Garden versus Weidman. It's number 2. He's number 3. It's a pretty clear-cut fight, and then go out there and do the job at Madison Square. It's fun. It's sexy.
So you like that one? So is he holding out? So why is it an official?
You got to show me the right contract.
Fair enough.
I don't need to do anything in these days. Listen, business is good. We're doing business everywhere, and I got a lot of things going on, and when you show me the right contract, then I'll sign the right contract. So,
is there a deadline that you kind of have in mind to be like, hey, I need this long to train, so if we're going to do Madison Square Garden, I need to know by X date if we're going to put this contract together?
I'm training. I'll be ready. I mean, and to make it down to 85 for that fight. That's just that much more you gotta add to it. So it's like, for me, that's a lot to get down there. I fucked up last time. I didn't do it right. I screwed up the weight cut, and that wasn't nearly what I could be. Going back in, I know I can redo that. There's a lot of things leading up to that fight that screwed up the process, and I left a bad taste in my mouth. I don't want to leave it like that. So at the same time, there's that it does entice me, but I know I'm a lot better fighter at 205, and I know I can do a lot more damage. So there's just a lot is up in the air. You gotta make it fun, make it exciting, and make me get up for it.
What do you walk around at?
I don't walk around that big, man, but I don't lift a lot. Like in camp, I've always had to restrict my diet and not lift because I get too big. And I was getting to a point when I was thinking about taking that Gustafsson fight, and I was lifting those 220. 220 felt good at 220. I hit 220 before, and I felt like shit. I felt fat and loaded, but I'd never lift properly and refueled properly, and I was feeling really good. Feel powerful.
Very nice. What is the health update? You said almost done, almost cleared.
Yeah. No, I God bless Dr. Williams out of Las Vegas saved my leg, man. It was a pretty traumatic experience. I never really thought it would be that bad, but Carl Williams, he really put it together and put this medieval device on my leg, which is literally state-of-the-art kind of thing. It's called a dermaclose. Kind of stretches the skin. The skin was going apart, and pulled it back together, and the thing's nearly solidified and sealed. And so, by Madison Square Garden, I'll be fine. I'm in boxing. I'm lightly wrestling, and I'm training hard around it, and it's not an issue these days. I should be back to full training within next few weeks.
Very nice. So it sounds like you got a lot of options on the table, right? I mean, anything's a possibility. So what are the goals? I mean, as you're mapping it out, are goals in fighting the priority? Is it business outside of the cage? I mean, what's life like and the goals for Luke Rockhold right now?
Business. I love fighting. I'm nowhere near done in fighting, but it's got to make sense. I'm not going to take off time and lose money to go fight. I love what I do, and I know I have a lot more to give in the sport, but these people need to get their contracts straight. They need to get their priorities straight and what they want, where they want to go, and I know what I want. I got everything is good, man. So I'm not going to fucking lose money fighting. I'm doing very well outside the cage, and I got a lot of different things going on I'm building upon, and so to stress myself to get down to 85, to put in 10 weeks of training camp, I got to put everything else on hold. So
what if Weidman said, let's do it at 205?
I love it.
Yeah. Neither one of you has to cut. It's still the fight people want to see, right?
Hey, I might have thrown that option out there. But it didn't come to fruition. But options are on the table. I like the 205-pound matchups. It just depends on what happens with DC, Gustafsson, and somehow John Jones comes back after he's suspended for 4 years. I mean, come on. The sport is starting to get a little jokey. Man, I'm just sick of it. Washing Brock, washing John. You get down to real business. These guys, they should be suspended for a long time. People are learning how to cheat the system. You saw it is owned by the UFC. I like fighting clean. I've always fought clean. I want to fight clean people, and I want to fight fair.
Would you fight John Jones if he came back?
I want a fair playing field. USADA's got to step their game up and be what they were in the beginning, because in the beginning it seemed like they were doing their job. now it seems like they're being owned. So sad to see, but hopefully it can correct itself and we can get on the right path. So I'm sick of it all, but I love it all at the same time.
There you go, Luke Rockhold saying, listen, he wants big fights, but he wants to get paid for it. He's down for that Weidman fight. He's down for Madison Square Garden, but he has not signed a bout agreement yet. He's hoping to get a little money in the bank. Still talking about 205, but wants to make sure DC's out of the way first before he makes that move up there. I kind of understand where he's coming from. Why go up there if you know you can't fight for a title because your boy's there? And I don't think DC's fighting at 205 again. I know he said he was, but I don't think he does.
Yeah, just timing-wise. I mean, it's either don't fight at 205 or fight after March of next year.
Right.
I kind of look at it like that. I mean, does he, by now, it is only August, but by now, does he fight before Brock Lesnar in maybe February? Probably not.
Probably not.
And then he's not going to
Why
fight a
would
month
you?
later.
Why risk it?
Why risk it? Yeah. It's the second biggest fight the UFC can make right now.
Yeah.
I think so anyways.
I agree.
And even though, say he defends to a 5-pound belt, loses it miraculously, because I'm not sure who could beat him, but, could happen. Anything can happen.
If John Jones came back, I mean,
Sure.
we're still waiting to hear. A lot of people around John Jones that swear he's going to fight before the end of this year. They swear he's going to fight. So the USADA thing.
DC loses the 205-pound belt. The Brock Lesnar fight still happens, but Cormier's coming off a loss. He's not a double champion.
That's
Takes a little bit away from it.
It definitely takes a little bit
why
of
risk
shine
that?
off. I agree. Don't fight. And he's already said he hates that cut down to 205. He's happier being at heavyweight. I mean, why mess with it?
It started getting tough. I mean, look at the Rumble situation last April. It's a tougher cut as he gets older. I think this is the toughest it's ever been. He was really happy when he weighed in at 246 or whatever it was. You could tell it was nothing. He just got on scales and got off. And to add on to that, who is there to for DC to fight at 205? Do you run back Gustafsson? I mean, that's a fight I'd watch, but I'd watch anything.
Right.
So it's not a fight that.
Well, that's what good. We're not good measuring tools, right?
No, we really aren't. It's not a fight that intrigues me more than a lot of fights. I mean, Anthony Smith is on the come up, but he's not really there yet. Volkan Ozdemir he beat. Glover Teixeira's coming off loss. Corey Anderson, not really there. There's nobody really there.
It's not a big money fight. Other than John Jones.
Other than John Jones. And even still, if that happens, maybe they do it at heavyweight. So
that is true. I like that idea.
But I don't know if you can do Lesnar and Jones again unless Cormier says, sorry, family, got to fight a little bit.
Got to fight past March. And he says he's not going to. He swears he's sticking to that date. I just think you do one fight. You don't risk it. As you said, it takes a lot of shine off. The promotion, it'll still be a big fight with him and Lesnar, but why risk it? I don't think he does it.
Yeah.
I don't think he fights. Listen, so it's funny mentioning the John Jones thing. And I was supposed to sit down with Jeff Nowitzki recently, and that got canceled. And we're trying to reschedule it to where we can just talk about everything and kind of get an update on the program and all that stuff. There's some things I like about USADA, and there's some other things that are. It's weird, man. The fact that we just get no updates, and I understand, the way they do it is they wait till everything is done, and they come out with a report, and everything's there, and it's the whole thing. But it just seems weird that it's been this long, and we don't know yet. You know what I mean? Like. Can't there be can't you at least just release a schedule? Like, hey man, we'll have the finding on this date, and instead it's we'll just tell you when we tell you, and there's nothing we can say right now. And I get it, man. It's
been a year. It's been a year.
Dude.
There are some fighters. Obviously, I'm never gonna forget whether or not John Jones had been given a suspension or not, because he's a high-profile fighter. It's sort of the talk of the year almost when it comes to John Jones. But there have been instances, I'm totally honest, that a lesser fighter, maybe not ranked or want to know in the UFC 0-1, whatever the case is, sort of not as high-profile, not even close, that I just assumed they had been given a suspension. They come out, I remember seeing, they, potentially flagged by USADA, say in April, and then, literally a year later, given a 1-year suspension. I was like, I just thought they were suspended.
It's crazy.
But no.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm interested to talk to Jeff Nowitzki and kind of follow up and hopefully get that interview scheduled. I'm interested to hear what they do with John Jones. I've said from the beginning, I think he gets 2 years. That's what I've always said. It's second time. I think even if it's an accident, even if it's an oversight, 2 years, I think. But a lot of people around him say that they don't think that's the case. So we'll see. interesting other USADA story this week. This Tom Lawler situation, where he had to serve almost the full 2 years before the UFC would release him. I'm curious to hear what you think about this because I like Tom Lawler a lot, man. He's been in Vegas. He's a good character. He's fun. And I think what's frustrating is because he swears his innocence and doesn't, and if that's the case, I definitely understand his frustration if he's like, dude, I'm innocent and I got hosed. But I will say this. I don't blame the UFC for not releasing somebody due to a USADA suspension because if they did that, I feel like that would totally take away what a USADA suspension means.
The validity. I can't even say the word.
The validity of
the validity. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like so, I
does.
feel for Tom Lawler, especially if, like he says, he is innocent and he doesn't know what the hell happened. Like I can understand his frustration, man. I really can. But on the other hand, like I kind of feel like it's not the worst decision in the world by the UFC to kind of make this a policy. I mean, I think they did the same thing with Frank Mir where they were like, we'll release you, but you got to guarantee us you're not fighting until your suspension runs out. I think that's I don't know, man, because I think it's fair.
Yeah, it is odd. Like I see both sides entirely. I think like you do. One of the ways I can look at it is, so this is basically the UFC saying we've never had interest in keeping you on the roster ever since this happened. Kind of just get it over with. But then again, I mean, but then we're saying drug testing. Let's improve this and let's get the cheaters out of the sport. I mean, there's others that just say juice up and everything will be great.
No,
but
that's not the answer.
Can't do that. And so I see both sides. I'd be angry if I was Tom Lawler because I'd almost feel like
Right.
I just wasted 2 years of my MMA career that couldn't go on because I've been under contract with a promotion that I can't fight for, and then all of a sudden I can a month after I'd be able to anyways. So I'd feel upset. I would feel if I was in his shoes like the UFC did me dirty, but they really didn't.
Right.
They're just trying to do what's right.
Trying to adhere to the policy, and I mean, I get it. Like, Luke Rockhold voiced his concerns with USADA. People are voicing their concerns about USADA, and I do think there's things they can do better. And those are things I want to talk to Jeff Nowitzki about. Is some of the things that we have complaints about. Why are they done that way? Why do they? It started with a brief conversation I had with him in Idaho when we were up in Boise for the UFC show. When I just kind of off record, but I was like, well, listen. One of the things I hate is when they say potential violation, and right away that means guilty steroid cheat, you know what I mean? At least in the mentality of our heads, right? And then if they come back later and say, oh, well, no, we found him, no finding, he's innocent, whatever, like, it's always like I say, like, it's the big, bold headline, on the front page, and then the retraction on page 10 that nobody ever sees.
And it's still, even if, it was sort of equal, it's still in the back of your mind.
Exactly.
I mean, I still remember that Courtney Casey failed to,
right.
USADA.
Even though she was later cleared. So you do. And I was like, couldn't they just, like, say a guy's injured or whatever and just like pull him out of a fight, like, well, that wouldn't be transparency. Like that would have the potential to look shady that we're lying about why guys aren't in fights. And I was like, well, that's a fair point. You know what I mean? I was like, you're right. So that's what kind of got, me and him like, hey, let's sit down and let's just go point for point. Like, why do they do this? Why do they do that? Like, this seems stupid. And so hopefully we get to have that conversation soon.
When it comes to whether they announced it as a potential violation early on before knowing whether or not, fighter, he or she is guilty, when it comes to do you release a fighter early on in their suspension, after failing a drug test, there really isn't a perfect answer.
There's not.
I really don't think so. There's a perfect answer for a lot of things, but there's certain things where either the fighter's going to be angry, or the promotion won't be doing it right, or it won't be transparent, or the fans will be angry, or the fighter will be angry because they're getting blamed for something they didn't do. But you kind of just got to do what's right, and I think kind of the situations we have now, although I don't like the potential violations, them announcing it so premature, you kind of have to do it now that I'm thinking about it.
I feel like they're trying to do the right thing. I mean, USADA gets a lot of heat. UFC gets a lot of heat, and they're definitely not perfect. I think there's changes that need to be made, and I think the things could be tweaked. And of course, the whole thing that the fighters themselves didn't even have an opportunity to like collectively bargain with the testing. You know what I mean? That's a whole other issue in itself. But I don't know if that'll ever be fixed. But I don't know. Just some interesting stuff with USADA. Again, I'm hoping to have that conversation with Jeff Nowitzki and that we get that scheduled at some point. All right, listen. One last quick interview. Did have a chance to speak with Joseph Benavidez as well. Of course, he lost in his last fight. I wanted to talk to him. I hadn't talked to him since then. Because I remember seeing him leave the cage, man, and just everybody's down after a loss. You know what I mean? But, man, just knowing him as long as I have and covering him as closely as we have, just seeing the look on his face, man, it just looked like it really got to him. And that stuck out to me more than just a typical loss. And he's in an interesting position. Even now coming off a loss, he did get rebooked. First for Las Vegas, then for Denver, of course, since Ray Borg can't be around Conor McGregor. But he does find himself in an interesting position. Now that Henry Cejudo is the champion, Joseph owns a win over him. It's not Demetrius Johnson, who you're 0-2 against. So even though you're coming off a loss, a lot of things open up. So anyway, I thought it was a good time to catch up with Joseph Benavidez.
Give us the emotion, man. What's it been like the last couple months? I mean, when you, I felt like when you left the cage last time out, man, it looked like you were a little heartbroken at the time, man.
Oh yeah, of course. When I left the cage last fight, I just had lost a split decision after 18 months. So that was my comeback fight. Didn't go as planned. Nothing does in this sport. But yeah, it was just a hard one to swallow because I felt really good and thought I won the fight. And I don't feel like I haven't been on that end maybe of a decision. I've been in split decisions like with Dominic Cruz, Demetrius Johnson. And, those are two of the best guys ever. And I come back. I felt like I had the perfect fight against Sergio Pettis, or a perfect opponent to come back on. And, just nothing went great. So that was tough. It was fun to be in there and fun to compete again. I was grateful for that. But, the goal is to come back and, fight to the best of your abilities and get the win. And, when I didn't, it was kind of like a surreal experience. Like all I had planned on is coming back and winning, having 7 wins in a row. And then, when it didn't go as planned, you're just kind of like in a disbelief. So that's kind of what you saw probably leaving the cage, kind of disbelief of just like, where did he win? How did this happen? Why? All that stuff you go through after a loss. And it had been a while since I had to feel that. I 6 fights in a row I had won, so it was a new feeling. And the 2 guys I had lost to, they were nice guys, good guys. So yeah.
It was a rough one. But do you think timing was an issue? I mean, that time away, and we always hear about the cage rust or whatever.
I don't think it played a factor, honestly. I felt good. I think at different stages in your career, ring rust can probably play a factor. But once you have the experience that I do, 3 title fights, 35 fights, you know how to fight when, where, whoever it may be. So I don't think that was it at all. Just maybe a lack of strategy or something. I don't really know. But as far as ring rust and stuff, it was nothing. I felt physically actually better than I had doing, getting that 18 months off, even though it was an injury. I felt really good. I had my body, my mind rested, everything. I had a good perspective. It just didn't go my way. Like, props to my opponent. He fought a really good fight. He caught me early, then kind of just like hung on a little bit. I still think I did enough to win, but so he did a good job. But no, I have no excuses as far as like I was away or I was injured. Like, I felt the best I ever had. Even the shape, the physical shape I was in, everything was great.
Nice. Well, at least you got another booking, right? I mean, you did it quickly.
Yeah.
Was that important to you? I mean, were you trying to get booked quickly, and are you happy with the opponent you got? Because it's another big name.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I wanted to stay at the top. Like, I was happy with both opponent bookings. Like, in our division, it's small. I've gone through a lot of people, just as like Demetrius has. He's like, I've been in it just as long. I started the division, first title fight, so I pretty much fought everyone. So I'm waiting for new guys to kind of come up, and win. But some of these guys that I've already beat or already fought, they keep winning too. So it's kind of hard to not have rematches. So Sergio is a perfect opponent. And then when I lost that, I was like, hey, I want to stay at the top. I feel like, I won that fight and I want to just stay at the top. I don't want to go anywhere, down. So it's nice. Now I'm fighting another number 4 ranked, Ray Borg. He went for the title his last fight. It's great. Yeah. So, yeah, just staying at the top there. It's great. The guy that I beat 2 fights ago just won the title. So that's like a whole new, like, rebirth too. Not only of like just a perspective for me, but just the division in general.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So, I mean, is that exciting? Because, I thought you'd kind of gotten to a point where it'd been so long since you had fought Demetrius, like, you probably did deserve a third one. But that's kind of unprecedented in the UFC. It doesn't happen. So, did seeing Cejudo win, I mean, did it kind of fire you up a little bit?
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool. I mean, not like, oh, man, Demetrius lost, that's great. Just the idea of it, switching up the division. It's been a long time
that we needed something just to switch up. And that's all because Demetrius, I take fault for it, not going out and beating him when I could have too. But yeah, it was amazing, man. Like, I lose a fight to Pettis, and I'm just like, man, like, that shouldn't have happened. But then I see Cejudo go out and win, and it just gives you like a rebirth and stuff, and even just a new confidence in what you're doing. I just beat that guy who went out and beat the greatest of all time. I just beat him, my fight before that. And I think it just kind of shows, like, Demetrius was an amazing champion, and I don't think he was necessarily physically better at this or that or that. He just always put together the perfect fight against every person, those 11 times or whatever he did his thing. But the gap skill-wise, like, isn't that huge. It's like his execution, which is everything. Like, everyone trained in the gym, like, in their mind, how they think they can fight, like, they're like world champion material. So just kind of showed, like, the gap of skill wasn't that big. Like, I always just said, like, Demetrius isn't a better wrestler, a better striker, or better in the clinch, or better here. He just always fights every opponent, like, exactly how he's supposed to, and, gets it done. So when he went out and did that, Cejudo thought he won the fight, thought he put in an amazing performance. I have a lot of respect for him, like, since our last fight. Like, despite our past, after our last fight, a huge amount of respect for him. We had one of the best fights of the year that somehow didn't even get fight of the night. That was weird. But then he goes out and does that, puts on an amazing performance, and yeah, man, he was the guy to do it, and it was really cool to see. And, like, coming off a loss, it was like, Jesus, like, I didn't know if I was going to get a fight with Demetrius winning 7 in a row. Nonetheless, I lose to Sergio Pettis. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen, and that just gave me, like, a whole new rebirth. Got a fight booked right away, and couldn't be more motivated and optimistic for the future now.
Nice. So, I mean, if you beat Ray Borg and you do it impressively, I mean, can you start, maybe say Cejudo, we got a little history, don't you want to clear that up?
Yeah, I've already been doing it. Like, first thing, I congratulated him. I'm not like that. I was like, all right, man, like, congratulations, that was amazing. I told him before, like, good luck, and I told him congratulations, but then second of all, I said, I'll give you the rematch. I'll give you the rematch so you can get that loss back from 2 fights ago. And he's like, oh, yeah, we're going to do it. And I know he's already calling out some other stuff, but I talked to the bosses and everything, and they're like, to me, I don't think anyone would argue if I fight him next and say I have 7 wins in a row and, I have a win over him. So I think that's the biggest thing going for me right now is I'm his last loss, and that's big for me. The 6 wins in a row I had, the loss was, a really close fight too, and that was to a guy that, lost to Cejudo by a huge margin, So the fact I have a win over him, I think that puts me in a good seat, getting a win over Ray Borg, but that's the focus first and foremost.
All right, that was Joseph Benavidez. Always fun to catch up with him, and yeah, man, he's admits it was the loss was tough, man. It didn't go the way he thought it was. Nobody, I guess nobody visualizes a long layoff and the victorious or the glamorous return from the injury and then imagine defeat, But he definitely took that one hard. But there's a lot of new possibilities for him now at flyweight. So look, a win over Ray Borg would not be the worst thing to keep in people's mind.
Not at all. Nope.
All right, man, Bellator 204. So, you haven't had Fight Night yet. We get that tomorrow. It's weird. It's the Friday fight, not the Saturday. But I don't know. It's your first Bellator event. What's even though we haven't seen the fights yet, what's been your overall impression of a Bellator fight week?
I've liked it. I know it's small, and I know we said briefly spoke of the open workouts. I think that was yesterday, and you even said yourself. I mean, as a guy who covers more shows than you don't, you like the small shows. They're just fun. And I've sort of felt that, like, I got the big... I mean, my first major show was just 226 and Tough Finale just last month.
Right.
And you're not going to get much more media presence than that. I mean, other than maybe May Mac or... Yeah. And so I had nothing to base that off of.
That was
but
a shit show.
Just from what people were saying. And then went to Calgary, and it was sort of in the middle, maybe even closer to the bottom. But, I mean... is kind of just us, and I know that Mike Strauss from a few websites we met at the weigh-ins earlier. They're local media, but they're sort of more focused on the local store leads of the card.
Sure.
And I mean, even when we talked to Darien Caldwell yesterday, by the time he was last of the 4, it was just us.
Yeah. Everybody left.
The local media said, see you later, and so it's been fun. I've enjoyed it, and also, I mean, something I've noticed, and I knew going in, but just the Bellator PR, if I'm being honest, are a lot more accommodating than UFC PR.
Right.
And I mean, I had a couple prelim guys I wanted to talk to yesterday, and UFC or Bellator PR guy, they hook it up, and all was well. And had the opportunity to talk to Noad a lot, who wasn't at the open workouts yesterday, and so just the way that all works, it's been a great week, and the fight should be fun too.
I agree. Yeah, I'll be honest. I like small shows, man. I do, and not that, of course, man. I mean, the fights themselves, like being at those big fights, or being at Maymac or whatever. I mean, yes, it's awesome. Like you're there, you're like, man, this is incredible. This is history. This is whatever. But as far as the fight week goes, I mean, yeah, there's no one-on-one time. There's no, everything's just so crazy. I enjoy the small shows. I feel like you get a better connection, a better feel of things. You know what I mean? So yeah, I do like the small shows. I'm not gonna lie. Same for smaller UFC shows. I mean, I'll be in Nebraska next week for that Lincoln card, and I'm not imagining there's gonna be much media there, but I enjoy it, man.
Yeah.
I have fun with that stuff. So yeah, I dig it. You gonna be still covering cards? Like you said, you're moving to Toronto in what, 10 days?
11 days, yeah.
11 days, and starting journalism school up there, right?
At Ryerson University. Yeah.
So is that going to impact? I mean, it's funny because you mentioned this summer, man, you've been gallivanting all around. You've been going to all kinds of shows.
Yeah, and so I've been just been able to start doing UFC, just turned 18, and got to be an 18-year-old to cover UFC, and so sort of taking advantage of that early on.
I didn't know that.
I guess not many people would, but
yeah, very good.
but yeah, I mean, so started all with 226. Had the opportunity to go to Calgary, and now this just because it was close. But with school starting, I mean, I've been starting to look at future Bellator shows, and because I can go under Bloody Elbow, it makes a little more sense than say going under Severe MMA, the outlet I went to the UFC cards under. But I mean, I don't know if I can commit to a week down in San Jose next month. I mean, a month into university, I'm sure they wouldn't be, mind too much. Yeah, I'm going to go cover the UFC for a few days. I mean, I'm in journalism school, but you still gotta do what the course says you gotta do.
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure what the future will hold as far as covering cards right away. But when I can, spring break, summer break, whatever it is. I mean, Toronto pay-per-view in December, I'll be there.
You'll be there for that. Yeah, it is interesting, right? Because I mean, it's work experience. Like that's what you're working to do, and if you get a chance to go do it, why not? But at the same time, like, I'm sure the school's like, yeah, but we still want you to cover. You got to be here and do the stuff.
You got to do the local Toronto baseball or whatever it is.
Yeah, no doubt. That's funny. Wow. Anyway, well, cool, man. Well, congrats to you, man. It's been fun seeing you out the last couple weeks. Thanks for sitting in tonight.
Yes, sir.
We'll all be following up. All your coverage will be at Bloody Elbow. Of course, mine will be at MMA Junkie, and hopefully we'll have good coverage of Bellator 204. Like I said, I think the main card is going to be good. The prelims got some locals we'll see about, and I'll be honest with you, some of the local fighters I don't know as much about. That always happens at Bellator shows. They use local promoters to book local fighters to help sell tickets. It's a wise strategy as far as filling the building. It makes it a little tough to break down the fight sometimes, but excited about some of the others on there as well. So should be a good night. In the meantime, I'll let you drive home safely and soberly.
Thank you.
Thanks
for having me.
I
appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm going to have a few more frosty beverages, not be sober. I actually got to work in the morning. It's been tough, man. Shout out to all the crew at MMA Junkie. With the changes we've been dealing with the last week and some vacations that were already planned, it's been a hard week for everybody. But shout out to everybody for making it through, and we'll get things back to normal soon. And to everybody else, thanks for listening.